Okay, so my project is entitled The Objectification of Sookie, Identifying Problematic Gender Stereotypes in True Blood Sookie Stackhouse. And my thesis is generally centered on the fact that how Sookie functions in the show is the negative aspect and not necessarily the character herself. And it also stems from the fact that I think Sookie is falsely marketed as a powerful or independent character based upon certain aspects that I will go into. But most of it, like my main point, is that it's the function of the character, not necessarily how the character is herself. Um, and this is a quote from Sookie, and I think it's perfect. But generally, um, I started with positive parts because I think that, well, I also use them and make them negative, but I think that they're important to note. Maybe also why her character could be positive, like to note these points. Her fairy power is literal power based upon ability, but it also kind of gives her a little bit of leeway in the creature hierarchy. I don't know if that exists, but she can heal and harm anything virtually in the True Blood world. So it kind of puts her above others. The second part is her telepathic ability. Obviously, it gives her a bit of power through dominance. I said dominant through cognizance, which is might be excessive to say, but I think that it gives her mental prowess, and she can prove her worth by skill alone, as opposed to meeting others' expectations via other methods that we often see. And I give a specific oh my god, I lost my train. I give a specific, what is the word? Example. There we go. Um, the third positive part is the otherness, which might be giving too much credit to True Blood, and I think it is. But generally, the point is that Sookie, because she has these two abilities, occupies a space as an other, which kind of like is the cyborg theory, where it's enabling or using robots to allow others to occupy genderless space. But generally, Christopher Broyle says this allows Sookie and Bill to be connected by their supernatural qualities, and that this space that they occupy because of their otherness allows for like a connection. I already said that, but he also says that they're equal, and which I didn't mean to laugh. I'm sorry, but I kind of like recant this because that's ridiculous, and I will point out more later on when I talk about the patriarchy. Um, Sookie, more like boring. Agreed. I kind of just talk about Sookie's personality here and how she's like, as a character, she's not really that impressive. Um, I also talk about how her rebellion leads into one of the main points of her character function, because she's kind of like, she seeks out dangerous situations, and um, she's not able to save herself from them. And here's where I kind of quash the positive because I'm that kind of person. And first and foremost, her rebellion um, leads her into dangerous situations. But I think she's portrayed to be irrational and like kind of even stupid. Because, like, this is a representation of why a viewer might think she's stupid because she's behind that cage thing. So it's based upon her intense love for men, and she has to get saved by those very men because she puts herself in these situations based upon um, ineptitude, mentally and maybe emotionally. Um, and then this is a slide where I specifically note which episodes these events occur in and why this is kind of bad. Like numerically, even just looking at it, it's several times per season in which she is portrayed as incompetent and rebellious and irrational. So, the way her character functions, as noted, is pretty negative. And the third part is where I talk about her fairy power, because arguably it's like the most important part of her, the most interesting part of her, but also the most dangerous part, as in, based upon that picture alone, she becomes an object to the vampires because they covet her blood, and she's essentially nothing but blood to them. Even her lovers, like they constantly threaten her for it. So it's kind of like this great power which she does gain, dominance from it is totally, it's subversive by the fact that she's being fed on by vampires because of it. And how does Sookie appear to be positive? Because she's the main character, which is kind of sad that that's true, but it is. And She has a personality, which is also sad, but that's true. She interacts with others besides Bill and Eric, but I kind of go into details as to how that's not really relevant. And I think these are the main reasons, including the attributes that I discussed as to why Sookie could be seen as a positive character. And here's where I start just talking mad shit about Sookie. She's owned by blood, so the vampires give her their blood when she needs it or whatever, and she's becomes a part of them. They can feel her anywhere, and I said she is owned by them essentially. Um, this makes her like the damsel in distress constantly because they save her at the drop of a hat whenever they feel that she needs to be saved, and it kind of like makes the viewer. I don't know. I was annoyed at certain points. Just it's like, how many times can this happen to you, and what are you doing? So it kind of it's more so for the viewer's like annoyance. I think I don't know. Sookie is essentially her love for men and her nurturing aspect, which she performs several times throughout the series. One for Eric in the fourth season, many a time for Tara when she needs help. It's like the basic female character that has it's not interesting. She is her romance for men. She is her motherly aspect, and I quoted people who discussed that this is a stereotype for female characters, which is true if you've ever seen television ever. Um, Negative parts 2.5. Sookie is mine, says Bill, and here's just like some little pictorial references for that. It's it's a literal objectification, ownership. It's ridiculous. And Sookie, it's not bad that Sookie loves men. It's great that she's sexualized, that she enjoys sex, receives pleasure, whatever. But the problem is that she's nothing but Bill and Eric. She can't be separated from them. And it's kind of, and also to the viewer, the fact that she's hurt time and time again is kind of discredits her as well because she has a rationality at this point. So she's defined by her relationships with men, and that's a problem for female characters who cannot separate themselves from the opposite sex in a heteronormative view. And Sookie's character, this is not even really like a based upon gender stereotypes, but they really don't develop her character whatsoever, which is just happens to female characters, I think, which doesn't make sense because she's the main character, which is really not nonsensical. But I just kind of talk about how she can be boiled down to her relationship with Bill and with Eric and with both men, especially in the fourth season where most of it's based upon her love for both men, and she really has no other plot besides that. One time her grandma dies, and that's basically it. Like, all of her plot is based upon vampires, specifically Bill and Eric. The patriarchy, this is a women's studies class, therefore the patriarchy must be discussed. And I argue that Sookie, Bill, Eric triangle is a patriarchy, a tiny patriarchy, a mini patriarchy, if you will. Sookie represents the opposite of maleness, which is femaleness, obviously, but it's also weakness, and it's also the marginalized group of people, the inferior, based upon male being the superior. So she is constantly compared to and marginalized by this existence because the men are dominant. Therefore, she has to be the inferior and like this oppressed and suppressed. And she's also irrational and irrational. Like, it's so basic. It's basic gender stereotypes in this. But I think that their love triangle does represent a patriarchy in a way that, I mean, Bill and Eric are totally generic masculine, male-identified maleness, the epitome of maleness in society. And Sookie is the opposite of that. Therefore, she's inferior. And I think, I don't use the word misogyny in here, but it's implied explicitly that the viewer might hate Sookie because she is created like this, that she's the damsel in distress, and that's annoying to people. I mean, she is annoying anyway, but, and also the man is still the standard against which women's behavior is measured. That goes back to the patriarchy, the superior-inferior dichotomy, as well as Sookie is being compared to maleness, and this is the masculine gendered rational or logical in decision making, therefore she's not, and this kind of like paints her automatically as a horrible character. Additional thoughts, I just talk about, I mean, males overall are given better plots. Bill and Eric have much more interesting plots. I just think that there's really not much there to Sookie, even though I like her. I just think that they give her the as little as they can and kind of ruin what they do give her. Her worth does not exist in herself, but Bill and Eric's worth exists in their maleness, and they're like magnificent storylines and like characters. Here's a short list of stereotypes. Um, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. I mean, average or below average intelligence, debatable, but Sookie's not shown to be extremely. She's a little bit cunning, but not necessarily like super smart. Average intelligent. I don't think she's below average. And all these like are bitchy. That's just her character. Like the stereotypical outspoken bitchy girl also exists in Tara, her friend. Prudish in the first season. Also, I think in the later seasons. I mean, she likes sex with vampires, but that's about it. Needs men, yes. How does this relate back to the class? Gender stereotypes, the patriarchy, male dominance, the dichotomy of women being inferior and males being superior, and there's no equality, no in betweenness, and that's like the entire thing is based upon that dichotomy because of the oppositeness of our society, where men are the opposite of women. Therefore, because we make men the norm, whatever men perform, women are lesser because they can't perform the exact same thing as men. So I specifically, and actually there's really no specifics in here. I just note that, she's a representation of a horrible, like the most ancient gender stereotypes in the book, mostly based upon how she functions, as I mentioned, her damsel in distress thing, the love for men, and that kind of thing. Um, Males are dominant in society, and males are dominant in True Blood. What a surprise. In relevant pictures, here's Sookie performing the nurturing stereotype, if you will. Eric lost his memory and she's being all nice to him, even though he's horrible. I think in season 2, she even said she would prefer cancer over him, so this makes so much sense. Here she's eating or drinking Bill's blood, which, is just represented. Now she's owned by him in part. Here's the entire plot of the show in one picture. Sookie's not an object literally in this because she's, we can see her whole body and she has a character, blah, 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 but she's definitely objectified. Like, they're just staring. I mean, oh my god, it's horrible. And, and here, this is Sookie and Tara. Um, it makes sense that she's holding her like that because she just got shot and she's probably dying, but still, it's just, like, this is how many times have I seen this in anything with a woman? Here's my works cited. So, yeah, essentially, Sookie, I appreciate that you try, but they should definitely just give her more. I think that if they took away her worth being based upon men, that I think it would be like 10 times better, like automatically. So yes, that is my presentation.